Being a good GM requires consistency, endless preparation, and player appreciation. This is Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master.
Hello, welcome to Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master. I am Robert, the narrator, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Confessions. So I think for this episode, I want to talk about the wackier ideas that I've had as a game master over the years for campaigns. Some really strange stuff, and a lot of it never saw the light of day or was never completed, so I don't know how effective those wacky campaign ideas were, but I just wanted to share them and throw them out there, and maybe someone will be inspired, or maybe it will show others what not to do when you come up with a crazy campaign idea. So let's get started with the wacky or crazy campaign idea. So a while ago, during my Savage World phase, before I grew tired of Savage Worlds, or it kind of fell out of favor for a couple of reasons. That's not what this video is about, though. However, I put together a campaign setting. It was a high fantasy setting, very similar to Exalted, where in which the PCs played demigods who were immortal. They could be killed, but their essence, their spirit, would come back and inhabit another body after a period of time. So the essence of this demigod individual could not be permanently slain, and they were fairly powerful, and they were hunted by the empire that ruled the continent of this high fantasy setting. And this empire, I think I called them the Blight, and they used magic that was harmful to the environment. So if a magic user cast a spell, it would actually suck the energy from the earth, or from the vegetation, and wither everything around them. So they drew their power from the environment, as I've said 3 times now, so I'll stop saying it. I think that's very similar. I'm pretty sure I stole that idea from Dark Sun. I'm pretty sure that's how magic users, or at least evil magic users, worked in Dark Sun. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure that was the kind of the origin of where I lifted that idea. But the wacky idea of the campaign setup was that when the campaign started, half of the PCs were already imprisoned by this evil empire, and they were in a makeshift prison area outside of a town that half the PCs were visiting. The empire, after hearing rumors that this town was maybe hiding or supporting these demigod PCs, they attacked at night, catching the PCs off guard, and were able to actually capture them, and along with the entire town. However, the PCs that were captured did not resist, so this empire had to figure out who in the town were these demigod individuals. And the PCs really couldn't just leave the prison after being captured and after their information and after they were identified or whatever, because they knew that if the Empire got absolute information or confirmation that the town had these demigod characters dwelling within the town, which was a no-no, the entire town would be wiped out. So half the PCs were imprisoned starting the campaign. The other half of the PCs were not imprisoned and were actually being sent in to rescue the PCs who were imprisoned. And the really wacky part here, we're going to get to it, is that I had the players play two characters. They played their PC, who was this demigod individual, half the party in prison, half of them coming in to rescue them. And I also had all of the PCs play one of the townsfolk. And what I told the players was, the only way to figure out who is who is by role-playing and investigating. And I think maybe a little weakness of this whole idea was, it was a trust system. I said, don't tell any of the other PCs which of your characters are is a townsfolk and which one is the PC, the demigod, and role play it out and figure it out. And the PCs were, all of the PCs, the imprisoned PCs and the PCs who were coming in, sneaking in to rescue the other PCs, they really couldn't be overt about who they were, because they knew that the Empire would completely kill every innocent townsfolk because they were harboring them. So it had to be a situation where they went in, they tried to figure out who was who very covertly, and then come up with a plan of how to escape without the Empire noticing it, or maybe building up some type of rebellion. So it was up to them how they were going to address that. And finally, the final glitch to the whole situation was some of the NPCs that were that the PCs were playing, the townsfolk that they were playing, were sympathetic to the Empire. So not only did they have to figure out who was a townsfolk and who was one of the demigod PCs, but they also had the issue of making sure that they don't alert any of the townsfolk who were sympathetic. So it was, we never finished the campaign. I think we did 2 or 3 sessions. I don't know why it ended. I think scheduling conflicts killed it. But it was going really well. There was a lot of intrigue. There was a lot of fantastic role playing. And ultimately, excuse me, I don't know how it would have turned out, but it started off really strong, and it was going really well before we had to stop playing. And it's a really excuse me, it was a really great idea. It was a really crazy idea that I had, and I always am looking to find a way to do something different, especially for the amount of time that I've been in the hobby. I would like, I feel like I've seen it all. And at this point, I'm always looking for a new way to experience the hobby, a new way to give new experiences to the people that I play with whenever I'm GMing, because I've been playing for more than 20 years and I feel like I've seen everything. So I'm always looking for a new twist. So my next wacky idea that I came up with, that one day I hope to be able to nail down, but I've always wanted to do a supers game, and to do it online, so that it can be viewed by fellow hobbyists and gamers. I think I wanted to use the Cypher system. I think the Cypher system is the system that I want to use. I've done science fiction, I've done fantasy with Cypher system, but I haven't done supers, and I'm really interested in being supers. But the idea of this campaign is essentially after since the end of World War II, there haven't been supers. There was a big villain who built a satellite who was going to attack the Earth and erase all of the superheroes' powers. The superheroes attacked. The satellite fell out of orbit, exploded, and the weapon eliminated all of the metahumans' super abilities. And so since World War II, there haven't been supers. So fast forward, supers are starting to come back into the world. And of course, the game takes place in the United States. And of course, the government is a little shy because of how things got really out of control during World War II. So the U.S. government is sanctioning heroes. And if you don't work for the U.S. government, you can't be a superhero. It's kind of like Civil War from Marvel. But the idea is that if you're going to be a superhero, you have to work under the control of the government. And what the government is going to do is to make the citizenry, I think that's the right word, or the citizens, comfortable with the idea of having superheroes back in the world. They decide to do a reality show. So they have several contestants broken into two teams, and the teams are competing to win the ability to be able to be superheroes who are working for the government, and the American people vote for who they want to be on the team, and everyone who doesn't make the cut cannot be a superhero. So that's a wacky idea that I had. Now, this is another idea where my thought was that I would have the players play two characters, and they would have characters on Team Alpha, and they would have I'm sorry, let me slow down. They would have a character on Team Alpha and a character on Team Beta. So it wouldn't be a situation where the player would ever have to play both of their player characters together, because they'll have one of their characters on each of the teams. And at the end of a session, I would have a RPG community vote for who they wanted to vote off of the teams. And of course, no player would ever have both of their characters eliminated. So the RPG community would form the team, and the campaign would be ongoing. That's a wacky idea that I've always had. I've always wanted to do this kind of reality style show where players are playing two characters, and one of their characters get eliminated, and the public decides who is going to be on the team. I've always wanted to do that. It's a crazy idea, I know, and one day hopefully I will, but I've always thought that was a really fun idea. So my next crazy idea was something that I am currently already doing with Cypher System. If you haven't seen any of my videos about my Vampire Nations campaign, and this one is going to be really quick and really brief. The entire reason that the campaign existed is one day I was sitting around thinking to myself, wow, wouldn't it be weird if I did a fantasy game where all of the player characters were vampires, and one of the abilities that the vampires in this campaign have, or this setting, is when they drink the blood of a fantasy creature, they gain that creature's ability. So if a vampire was to drink the blood of a giant, they would get really strong. And actually, the idea for this campaign setting, I think, originated from my time playing a card game. I don't know if you're familiar with collectible card games like Magic the Gathering, which was the first collectible card game ever created. Well, the second card game ever created by the same game designer, Richard Garfield, was licensed from the Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game. It was originally released as Jihad. And it was based on the Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game. And they have a card in the game, a piece of equipment called Giant's Blood. It was basically a vial of blood. I guess it was from a giant somehow. And it made the character stronger. And that actually made the idea pop in my mind that, wow, wouldn't it be cool if the setting was like that? So the other idea, the last idea that I have, so that's my Vampire Nations idea. But the last idea that I had was something that hopefully I'll be able to do after my Vampire Nations game. And essentially what that is I want to do a high fantasy setting. And what I want to do is I want to have start the campaign with the players not playing their final character. And the setting is, it's as I said, it's a high fantasy setting, and the world has gone through the cycles of having very powerful, legendary individuals come into existence, but for some reason disappear or be defeated or destroyed. And the world is permeated by this very dark force, which is driving the world to oblivion. And probably a part of that process is the reason why these powerful, legendary individuals throughout the history of the world have been defeated or destroyed or disappeared. And what I told the guys is I want to start the campaign with everyone playing a pre-generated NPC, and I'm going to use my gaming system Peace for this. And generally all they will know is that they are mercenaries, or at least everyone except one person will be a mercenary who is being hired for a mission. And one PC in the group will be a mercenary who is doing the hiring, and he is the only person or PC in this mercenary group that knows every detail about the mission. And there are reasons in the setting why he may not want to tell the other PCs exactly what the mission is, but I'm leaving it completely up to the PC who volunteers to have all of the information and to do the hiring of the other PCs as to how much information he shares. And all I will say, because I have a couple of my players who listen to my channel, all I'm going to say is when the game starts, the players are not playing with their final characters. And by the end of kind of the beginning of the campaign, they will be playing their final characters, but it's going to start like that. So it's a really, I think it's a really interesting idea. And once it's going to take a lot of trust for the players to buy in, but I think they're really going to enjoy what I have in mind. And that's all I'm going to say. If it ever happens, of course, I'm going to talk about it on the channel. So yeah, those are all of my wacky campaign ideas that I've had over the years. What are some wacky campaign ideas that you've had in your time? Something that was really outside of the box, something that was unique, that you haven't seen or heard of before. Let me know about that in the comments, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you're watching this video. Thanks.